Welcome everybody to BikeRide.com Reviews. I'm Scott, and today we're looking at the Café Cruiser from Ride1UP. Now this is a retro looking e-bike with some very sleek and cruising style. It's got these long sloped handlebars and an upright riding position and a frame styling that reminds us of one of those old school Harley-Davidson motorcycles. And it's going to be really interesting to see this thing out on the boardwalk, zipping down to the beach and putting it through its paces to see what the Ride1UP Café Cruiser is going to do. So what is the Café Cruiser by Ride1UP? Well, to start things off, let's take a look at the producer. Ride1UP is one of my favorite producers right now for e-bikes because of their ability to give us some really nicely priced builds that are coming in at an extremely affordable price point while still able to offer cutting edge performance and just some really nice aesthetics and general look to the bike. So they have a definite visual style to the way that they put their bikes together. It's kind of this matte gray color changing look that has these layers onto it, and it's really nicely done. I love the way that they do it. I like the way that they integrate their logo into the bike, and I really like the way that they're able to bring you performance while keeping with that price point. The Café Cruiser really holds up this tradition, and it's definitely a looker. As we said before, it's got these old school motorcycle kind of vibes mixed with that classic beach cruiser bicycle kind of look, and in general, it really is a head turner when it's riding down the street. And those looks are really paired with some performance. So we've got a 500 watt Bafang rear hub motor that's able to put out 750 watts sustained. We've got an 8-speed Shimano drivetrain where normally we would be seeing a 7-speed on a lot of bikes like this. And we also have a nice set of Zoom hydraulic brakes, which is great to see a set of hydraulic brakes on such a budget-minded build like this. So we've really got features packed into this bike. It's even got an 80mm front suspension fork to smooth out the road, so you're really getting some chill cruising vibes, and that's really what this bike is all about. It's a laid-back cruiser that's really easy to just zip down the street, and with a class 3 rating, it's able to zip you up to 28 miles an hour. So it's really quite quick for that laid-back cruising vibe, but it brings a whole ton of chill, and I had a ton of fun testing out this bike. So let's get started with the pros. Coming in for the first pro on the Café Cruiser, and it really sticks with the name, this bike has a ton of laid back cruising style. The moment that you get into that seat, it's a very large, comfortable seat, and you put your hands on those sloped up, relaxed handlebars. You can feel the upright riding stance, and you're going to be immediately transported to your local beach, or at least that's what it's going to feel like. It's really a wonderful riding experience, and every time that I get on this bike, I just find myself enjoying the pleasant way that it is capable of pedaling you and just in general moving around. So you've got a nice upright stance. It's really easy to ride even with no hands, and very stable with those large 3-inch tires and quite a long wheelbase. We've got that 80mm front suspension fork, which is smoothing out the ride a little bit, and those sloped up handlebars make it really easy to ride one-handed or both hands on it with a straight backed stance. It's got a really large seat that's also offering us a little bit of cushioning, and this is all paired with quite a powerful 500 watt Bafang motor, which is capable of up to 750 watts of sustained power. And this is more than enough to zip you up to that 28 mile an hour top speed limit. I was actually really impressed with how this bike provides a ton of power when you're pedaling it, so it really doesn't make you work very hard and sticks with that whole laid back, chill cruising mind state. So just in general, I found this was a fun bike to ride, and I really enjoyed it for the chillness, and just think that anybody could really pick this up and have a ton of fun, whether you're on a vacation spot or if you're using it for a little light duty commuting. The second pro about the Café Cruiser is the great affordability. Ride1UP is able to offer bikes that are at a better price point and offer better than average performance and components compared to a lot of the other bikes that are on the market for a similar price range. So I'm really happy that they've gone and done this with the Café Cruiser as well. It's really got all the features that you could hope for in a bike and comes in at a really affordable price point. The final pro for the Café Cruiser is just a great look overall. Ride1UP has a wonderful aesthetic to all the bikes, and they really kept that going with the Café Cruiser. It's got a really classic kind of retro look, and I love the gray color scheme with all the black components, and they've got a few little pops of red like the brake levers and the brake calipers, so you really got a few little details, as well as that cool kind of faded logo up on the frame. So just in general, the bike is definitely a head turner, and they've got a really great aesthetic going. So again, you're seeing a nice look for the price point and a really cool looking bike. The Café Cruiser is really a feature-rich bike, and it offers a lot for the price point, but we've always got to look for what doesn't really work with the bike. And when we were looking for the cons on the Café Cruiser, what really stood out to us was a little bit of up and down motor performance. So while we found that the motor was very peppy and able to speed you up to that 28-mile-an-hour top speed on flat ground and some mellow inclines, when it came to some steeper hills, we started to find that the Café Cruiser was lacking in power. And what this comes down to is the fact that it's powered by a 500-watt Bafang rear hub motor. Now this motor is capable of 750 watts sustained and 60 Newton meters of torque, so it's definitely got the power to get you up to 28 miles an hour. But when you're dealing with hills that are in that 10% or more range, you're gonna find that the bike is a little bit of a challenge to get up hills. And that little bit of a challenge is going to turn into more leg work from you, or just you avoiding hills in general. So it's really true to its name, the Café Cruiser, and it really wants to just cruise and chill in a more laid back fashion. So you're going to hit the 28-mile-an-hour mark, no problem on flat ground, but you're going to want to be a little more laid back and chill in general with this bike. And I've heard that it's all downhill to the beach anyway, so it's not going to matter. What does the Café Cruiser do best? I love the chill and laid back ride of this bike and had a ton of fun zipping it around town. Honestly, it's a blast to ride with no hands on the handlebars, and you could easily zip down to the beach with a surfboard underneath one arm. I found myself liking the bike more and more the more that I rode it because of that laid back chill feel and just the absolute comfort of zipping it around. The throttle is quite peppy, and the motor is really working hard so that you don't have to. So it's really a chill and easy bike to love while zipping you along at a very good rate of speed. I love the fact that it's got a 28-mile-an-hour top speed, so it's really able to eat up the miles when you want to, and you still have a nice range. So when you're at setting 1, 2, or 3, you're able to maintain a nice pace for some of that more chill, laid-back, slow riding when you're in traffic, around pedestrians, or on a bike path, and you don't want to be zipping along at high speed. I had a ton of fun and found that the bike was really comfortable with those big tires, that suspension fork, and a little bit of suspension on that big cushy seat. So just in general, comfort and chill vibes are the whole thing of this bike, and that's what it's really doing best, along with that great price point. So I see people being really satisfied with this as a vacation beach style cruiser that's got a little bit of power behind it. So who should buy this bike? Like we've already mentioned, it's got a whole bunch of chill, laid-back vibes, so it's going to do great for anybody who's looking for a really affordable and easy-to-love e-bike to zip around and get around town and have a great recreational ride. This bike could also see double duty for some commuters because it is going to be capable of taking pannier racks on the back, and it does have that really nicely integrated rear rack, so you could toss some cargo on the back of it. It is going to be noted that you're going to want to be careful if you're going to have a lot of big hills on your commute, because this motor does not do well with the larger hills and doesn't seem to have enough torque for that. But with a 28-mile-an-hour top speed, it's able to eat up the miles, and it has a pretty good total battery range. So you're going to be able to get to and from a good distance, and it would see some good work as a light duty commuter, as well as just a ton of fun to ride as a recreational bike around town. So what are some reasons to look elsewhere? The main reason to look elsewhere with the Café Cruiser comes down to its lacking ability on some of those steeper hills. You're going to find that it does well on anything but grades over about 10%. So if you're not looking for the absolute top performance in a bike, you're going to find plenty of reasons to love the Café Cruiser. After all, it's all in the name, Café Cruiser. It's really about that chill, laid-back ride, and there's a ton of reasons to love it if you're not planning on going up any steep hills. When we're taking a look at the frame and geometry on the Café Cruiser, we can see some really classic retro vibes, but we're also getting a very modern feel. So in general, you've got a pretty high top tube, so you're gonna have to swing your leg over this bike. It's definitely not a step through, but it's got some great functionality with that well-integrated rear cargo rack that's able to carry 130 pounds. So you could actually put a second person on the back of this with the passenger kit. Moving up along that frame, it's got some really nice, cool, swooping design to it, and it kind of reminds you of an old school Harley Davidson motorcycle. And with those nice long handlebars, it's giving you a really upright and comfortable riding stance. Everything about this bike is very comfortable, including that big cushy seat. And the seat combined with the 80mm front suspension fork is really smoothing out the ride. So this bike is pretty good to pedal, but the seat can kind of get in the way during intense pedaling. So it's really more about the name Café Cruiser. It's great to cruise, and the frame is a really comfortable riding experience. It does come in at about 65 pounds, and the frame is quite long, so it could be a bit of an issue for people storing it, putting it onto a bike rack, or moving it upstairs. But it's a pretty typical weight that we see with e-bikes, so it's not on the super heavy side, but definitely something to consider when you're looking to buy it. It's more comfortable on the ground, and it's not the most comfortable thing to lift onto a bike rack, but it's definitely manageable. Laid back is the best way to describe the cockpit and control on the Café Cruiser. You've got these long swooping handlebars which make it able to have a really straight backed riding position and are quite comfortable. It's really nice to ride this bike whether you've got both hands on the bars, one hand on the bars, or no hand on the bars. It's a very stable bike. And we've got these nice kind of faux leather grip, which I'm gonna let them get away with, and it's pretty comfortable. Coming around, we can see that we have a thumb style throttle, and that's a really nice feature to see on this bike, and that throttle is quite peppy. You've also got these nice aluminum levers, which are great looking aesthetically, but they don't feature any kind of a reach adjustment, so you're not gonna be able to change that grip if you had smaller hands. But I found it was easily able to get my fingers around it in a nice fashion. And then on the opposite side, we've got that Shimano Acera shifter, which is easy to use and giving you some nice visual cues as to what gear that you happen to be in. So I was happy with the cockpit. And then when we look at the control here, it's a very simple controller. It's giving you the information that you need, and you're able to cycle through that information panel, which is displaying a few other extra bonus information things to you. The up and down arrows easily cycle you through the 5 pedal assist levels that you have available stock. And then you are able to turn the unit on and off as well as activate that light. Now this controller also has the ability to go into the advanced settings by pressing and holding the up and down buttons, and you can change a ton of functionality. Take a look in the advanced user settings for this if you'd like to change a few aspects, because there's a bunch of stuff that you can change, and it was really nice to see that customization available in a controller at this price point. So that's really nice display that we have on this bike, and I was pretty impressed with those functional customization changes that you can make. The motor on the Café Cruiser provided a little bit of confusion for us. Now, when it first came out of the box, we were really pleasantly surprised by this motor. On flat ground and mellow inclines, it's very peppy. Whether you're using the throttle or the pedal assist, this bike does not make you work very hard. It likes to really provide the power and zip you up to that 28-mile-an-hour top speed limit. So I had a great time riding this bike around town, and the motor is really never lacking for power on flat ground. Now, when we got to some of those steeper hills though, we found it was a completely different story, and the motor did seem to be lacking some power. So this made us kind of start to peek and look into that motor a little bit. So we've got a 500-watt Bafang rear hub motor that's putting out 60 Newton meters of torque. And this motor is capable of a pretty impressive 750-watt sustained output. So that is a good output for a motor of this size, and that's really why we're seeing this great ability on flat ground and mellow inclines to speed us up to 28 miles an hour, and the bike is able to feel really torquey and have good response, and yet still have a little bit of an issue on steeper hills with that 500-watt motor and 60 Newton meters of torque. So in general, I think that we're really happy with this bike, and for the price, you're getting a ton of features as well as a good performing motor. So we're really happy with the performance of this bike and had a great time zipping it around town. It's got more than enough power for your average consumer. Powering the motor on the Café Cruiser, we have a 48 volt, 15 amp hour battery, and this battery is nicely integrated into that down tube on the bike. So we found that this was a pretty powerful battery for the bike, and it was able to power it over 23 miles at maximum pedal assist. So that's giving 96% pedal assist. That's a fairly potent number, and that was a good range test, which was in line with what the brand was stating that it could do. And that also included a few reasonably sized hills. And if you mentioned that we've seen before, we know that this is not a very good motor on those steeper hills. So it was a pretty impressive range test given the terrain that we were traveling over. So this bike has more than enough power in the battery to get you to and from the beach or any of those places that you want to go in town. And it's going to be able to be used as kind of a light duty commuter. So we're really seeing some great functionality for the price point again with this bike, and we're happy with what we're seeing out of the range test in the battery. Charging is taken care of by a 48 volt 2 amp charger. So this is a pretty typical charger, and it's not going to be a fast charger. We're going to see the battery fully charged in about 8 hours if you've completely depleted it. We have some nice functionality here as usual. You can remove that battery out of the bike frame to charge it, bring it inside, or you can choose to charge it while it's on the bike. The placement of the charger is really nice up on the top of that down tube, so it's easy access with a nice rubber stopper. And then once we've removed the battery removal is again quite easy. You unlock it with the key, and then you're going to fully remove it by twisting that knob that we're seeing on the battery, and that allows the battery to fully be removed from the bike. And placing it back in is quite easy. It's just going to click into place when you place it back into the bike. So again, we're seeing some really easy, great functionality, and nice to see that those keys are in nice, easy to reach places, and also the charging port is in a nice, easy to reach place. So it's really a good combination on this bike. Looking at the drivetrain on the bike, we've got the Shimano Acera rear derailleur, which is an 8-speed. We've got a 46-tooth front crank and an 11 to 32-tooth rear cassette. So we've got some nice range, and you are seeing an upgrade there from that typical 7-speed that we would normally be seeing on a lot of other bikes. And this is just another example of how Ride1UP is bringing the value to you in this build at a really nice price point. They're giving you an 8-speed drivetrain where you'd normally be seeing a 7, and we're seeing a little bit of an upgrade there with the Shimano Acera. So it's really a crisp drivetrain. I had no problems, and the gearing is really pretty well matched to the bike. When you're at the top end of that speed at 28 miles an hour, you're not really doing anything. You're basically just there for show, pedaling along, and the motor's really doing all the work. But that really goes with the name Café Cruiser. And I'm not going to argue if I'm not working hard while I'm going 28 miles an hour down the road. So I'm pretty happy with the drivetrain on this for what we're seeing as a recreational bike, and I think that it's some great value. Braking is taken care of by a set of Zoom 180mm rotors with a nice hydraulic caliper on there. Zoom is a good manufacturer, and I found good results with this brake. It was very reliable and brought me to a stop. And I really loved the aesthetic of the brake lever here. I love that little, patch of red that we're seeing on there. I added a little bit of visual value to it. And I found that those levers were really nice and had a great feel, and I was able to modulate my braking really nicely. So we're not seeing any kind of reach adjustment on the lever here. So if you had smaller hands, it might be a little bit tough to get on there, but I didn't have any problem. And I found that these brakes were in general great. With that 180mm rotor, we had more than enough stopping power to bring you down from 28 miles an hour, and I felt like they were quite capable on the bike. The Café Cruiser rides on a set of Sandstorm tires, and this is a 26 by 3-inch tire. So this is a pretty large set of tires, and we don't have a ton of tread on the tire, so it's fairly smooth with just a few grooves on it. So this is a pretty nice tire on the road. I found it's quite smooth, able to eat up the miles, and it does well in a lot of those kind of harder pack off-road conditions. So I found that it did well on harder pack sand, like below the waterline of the beach, but it doesn't do so well in the looser sand up at the top side of the beach. So I had a blast zipping it along by the high water line and zipping it on some of the rockier sections of the beach, and I found that it did well on gravel roads, dirt roads, and some of those, you know, looser areas where it was still hard packed underneath. So the tires are great, but they're definitely not any kind of an off-road tire. But again, we're talking about the Café Cruiser here. So for its intended purpose, zipping around on pavement, grass, and some gravel and dirt, it's going to do just fine, and I'm happy with the tire choice that we have here. Although it is a bit of a larger tire, so you're going to have to take this into account when you're buying a bike rack, or if you're going to replace tires, you might have a little bit of trouble finding those tubes. You'll have to go to an e-bike specific bike shop or order them online probably. Looking at some of the other features on the bike, like the kickstand and some of the contact points and accessories, we've got your standard single-sided kickstand, which is easy and nice to use on the bike, so it's great to see that down there. And then looking at the contact points, we have these kind of faux leather grips, which normally I'm not a huge fan of, but on the Café Cruiser, I'm gonna let them get away with it because this is a chill, laid back bike. And I have to say, I was actually enjoying zipping down the road with only one hand barely hanging onto the bars, and it was a very comfortable bike to ride. So it's really gonna work, and it matches the aesthetic here. So no complaints from me on those grips. And then we're gonna come down to that big comfy seat, which is a very nice seat, and it's great to go with the bike. It's very stable, so you could ride this thing with no hands on the handlebars, and it's going to absorb some of those bumps. So a nice seat to go with it. And we've got a standard set of Welgo flat pedals rounding out the accessories on this bike and the contact points, and those are just a very standard and pretty inexpensive but also perfectly fine set of pedals that are going to get you out on the trail and able to offer you some reasonable traction. So we're seeing some nice contact points on the bike. When it comes to safety, we've got a set of brake cutoff switches on both of the brake levers, so that's going to shut the motor off quickly when you're applying the brakes. And then we've got a really nice bright 80 lux front headlight and a rear brake light. So we've got a nice set of safety features on this bike rounding it out. You're also able to get some great extra accessories from the brand. Some of these items are a passenger package on the back, which is going to allow you to take a second passenger, and you're also able to get some pannier racks and other accessories. So we're seeing some great add-ons for the bike, and in general, this is just a fun, great package. The Café Cruiser definitely turns some heads with some really cool retro style and a laid-back, chill vibe. It's also got the power to take you up to 28 miles an hour with that Class 3 designation, and is packed with all the features you could really be looking for in an e-bike, all at a great price point. So this bike has a ton to offer, whether you're a beginner rider or you're an advanced rider who wants to have a chill, laid-back recreational ride down to the beach. I love taking this bike around town, and I am going to have a ton of fun taking it out as the heat persists and we can get out and enjoy the weather more and more. So I'm really impressed with this bike from Ride1UP, and I think they've just done it again, and you couldn't do better for a nice, affordable bike. Is this bike for you? Check out bikeride.com to see detailed specs and to see user and expert reviews. And while you're there, you can also check out other e-bike and bike reviews and see them rated to find your perfect match. As always, I'm Scott with bikeride.com, and I hope you enjoy the ride.